Welcome or welcome back to Plant It Where the Sun Don't Shine with Dr. Dennis. Today I have the privilege of a friend joining me, someone who I've known for about 26 years, who shares a love of gardening. I have Shirley! Hello, Shirley!
Hello, everyone. How are you?
Shirley, do you want to give us a little bit of an introduction to who you are? And you can talk about how we know each other if you want, but you can just tell us about yourself. It's up to you. And then we'll go into a few, sort of questions that we preset for this conversation today, but really looking forward to the chance to chatting with you. So feel free just to introduce yourself as you would like.
So, I'm Shirley Stevens. I met Dennis in Pennsylvania in 1996, I believe.
That sounds right. Yeah.
I think when we were working at a summer camp together, and I taught ceramics, and Dennis taught nature, of course. Yeah,
Woohoo!
he was known as Dennis Nature for a very long time in everyone's minds. Anyway, yeah, that's where we met, and I'm obviously from the UK, and my gardening journey started there. But yeah, I'm from the UK, and my dad had a garden, had an allotment because in the UK we've got very small houses. So he had a plot which was a little short walk, like literally a 5-10 minute walk from our house, and that's how kind of my garden journey started. And he got that plot when I was about 10. So yeah, that's how it started. I used to help him over there.
I love the fact that you mentioned the allotment because in Canada, obviously, people have yards. Most
Yeah,
people who own
most
a
people.
house have a yard, or even if they're in a condo, sometimes they have a small plot in their space. But that distinction between allotments and yards is an interesting one. And can you just sort of like explain the allotment a little bit more?
Yeah, so most people in the UK do not have a very big garden at all. So my family, we didn't have a very big garden. We had a very small kind of, I work in meters, so a very small kind of, or even like 8 by 8 meter front yard, and then maybe a 10 by 12 yard at the back, really really small, which is mostly taken up by kind of sheds with bikes in. And we were a family of 5 children, so not a very big yard. So I think my dad, stressful job, wanted to kind of get into gardening, and I don't know where that came from. Actually, I need to ask him, but he put his name down. You have to put your name down for allotment in the UK, and you can wait years. And I think he waited a couple of years and got a plot really near a house, and which he could just walk to every day. And sort of gradually, it was kind of a derelict plot, and built a shed on there, and it kind of went on from there. He ended up with 2 plots, which he's just given up at 90 years old.
Wow.
So yeah, and he ended up with a shed and a radio and a little heater and 2 greenhouses and fruit trees, and yeah, and he loved being up there. So yeah, it was his kind of happy space.
And so, how big would an allotment on average be
Oh,
then?
so that was more like more when he had 2 plots together. It's more like an acre kind of a land, a really big plot. Yeah, yeah.
Wow.
Well, like a huge bit of land. So some people would have on allotments in the UK, they have chickens on their allotment too. Some
Wow.
people have beehives. So where my dad's allotment was, he's literally just given it up because it was a little bit, it was just too big for him to manage. Some people have smaller, like more like quarter of an acre, but it depends. You can get different sizes. Yeah.
Amazing. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
That's wild. I was not even aware that like allotments were that large. Okay.
Yeah, they can be. Depends. Yeah.
So I assume it kind of depends on your town council or where you are.
Yeah. I think it's more normal to get like more like quarter of an acre, kind of a really a smaller bit of land, but it's quite big. Yeah.
And
So
do
when I moved out, we moved when we had a little terraced house in the UK and a very small garden, kind of more like I'd say like 15 by 20. Yeah, it wasn't very big, but I did when I moved out and we got our own place. I started to grow things in containers, like little, just cool, like things like squash and some beans, but really, really small things, like really, really small things, and like
container
flowers and things.
container gardening is the gateway drug, right?
Yeah. And then I had like for like little hanging baskets, and we grow tomatoes in those, and like did loads of companion planting things. Yeah, got hooked, and then I put my name down for allotment with my friend because I thought I had 3 small children at the time, and I thought it was just going to be too much. So she had two small children. So eventually we got a little allotment as well, and we that was right by a kind of big park. Wasn't actually, it was walking distance, but more like a 25-30 minute walk. So not ideal, but I used to bicycle over there. Um, but it was a lot of work because it needed watering in the summer most days or every other day, which was a lot. But yeah, we shared it between us. It was good, and grew quite a bit on there.
Amazing. I love it. It's that combination of doing something good for your family and for your, growing stuff that you would eat, but then also getting the benefit of the exercise to get there and to go and do the work and all of that. Like it's that full picture of what gardening provides us, right? Like, and the therapeutic part of breaking from our regular workday as well. So it just sounds like the allotment idea, even if it was a distance, gave you so much in terms of benefits to your life.
Oh yeah, no, it's great. And then my kids were little, got all the kids involved. My oldest, who's now 19, was I don't know 4 or 5, and he was obsessed with creatures. So the first thing we did was dig a pond, quite a little pond. But then he was happy to come with me because he just pond dip, right? So once we had that and it kind of established itself pretty quickly, he would be there happy, like it got frogs in it almost immediately. So he would be very happy pond dip in there and I'd just be doing my thing. So yeah,
I love
that,
it.
that made it work.
I literally am in the process of doing a little pond in our garden. So the fact that you mentioned the pond thing is a nice tie-in. I'm sort of obsessed now of trying to get a little wildlife pond going because I just see the huge benefit in all that it provides to the garden, not just me getting the joy of seeing critters, but also, by getting more amphibians into the garden, they're eating pests. By getting more insects that are coming into the pond, it's bringing in more birds to eat those pests and like all that stuff, right? It's that big
Yeah,
circle
yeah.
line
Well,
thing.
he's actually just dug a pond in my garden now. It's not huge, but we've got a small pond, and there's lots of creatures coming to it because of the water shortage. And there's even more. There was a
Yeah.
porcupine there drinking from the pond yesterday. So,
Wow.
yeah, which I've never seen. I
Wow.
have seen a porcupine in my garden, but not recently, not for a while. So, yeah, it's
Wow.
great. It definitely does.
Yeah.
Like help the biodiversity, and like he dug it last year, and the difference this year, it looks so natural this year, immediately, like really quickly.
Nice.
It's set in, and yeah, yeah.
That's And you mentioned the drought. So here in Mi'kma'ki or Nova Scotia, we're experiencing probably the worst ever drought that I've ever heard of in this province here in Canada. It's really, really bad, and it's actually considered an extreme drought. So the idea of having a pond that could be used for a bit of a water source, or at least providing refuge for those critters that do need it, and plants as well. So yeah, very cool. In terms of your garden journey, then, and the differences between the UK allotment system and what you have here in Canada, just walk us through what you sort of see as like the highlight differences, either similarities or differences that you think are.
The gardening calendar is quite significantly different. That was something I had to get my head around, and the more kind of extreme temperatures. The UK has a more temperate climate, so it's more even. So that's the biggest thing. So I think what I did in my head is like what I would start planting seeds in February. So just kind of gone a few months ahead. So that's how it works. That's how made it work in my head because I couldn't work it out at first, like when to plant things, when to put things out. And the last frost is more like June, whereas the last frost in the UK is very much like March, well, late February really. So that's been a biggie, right? Getting my head around that, like how late it is, and panicking that there's nothing in the ground and like nothing's going to grow because it's not going to work. Because normally by like June, I'd have harvested all my peas, would have been done, harvested, all the broccoli would have been harvested, like that would have been done for the year, and you're pretty much winding down. Like by the end August, you're done. Really, it's getting cooler, and yeah. So that's the big difference, and that it gets hotter. So
I definitely agree. Like even in my own experience of gardening in other parts of Canada, but then also in Pennsylvania when I did the nature program, and then in other parts of the world like Asia, getting your head around that is such a big difference, right? And that internal, your own internal clock of, oh, but I'm behind. I'm behind, and I need to get this in the ground, but like there's no way you could get it into the ground. And here, it seems that our last frost date shifts significantly, I think is being exacerbated by climate change as well, right? Like we might get a really, really, really mild May, and then suddenly, like beginning of June, there's a cold snap, or vice versa, or sorry, not vice versa, but like earlier, where it feels like April, we're already where we should be in May, and then we get the really cold snap in May. So like if you would have jumped ahead and put things in the garden, they would have died, right? So
Yeah, I did try that one time, and I ended up going out every night with like bed sheets to cover things, and it was an absolute disaster. I was like, I'm not doing that again. I think I
yeah,
did that one year. I was like, right, really eager to get going. But yeah, I think that's the difference. And then there's some things that are annoying, like dahlias, because I wouldn't dig them up in the UK because they would be okay if I put straw on them and enough mulch. I could. I mean, you're supposed to even in the UK dig up the bulbs, but I didn't used to, and that's just annoying because I really love dahlias, so I've got lots. So I have to dig them all up and put them all in sawdust, which is very annoying. And then I even dig up like the gladioli bulbs and other things, but I wouldn't have done that in the UK. They would just stay. They would just stay.
yeah, that's a big difference. Wow, yeah, having the benefit of being able to leave those things in the ground would be such a joy.
Yeah,
Not to-
yeah,
and I can imagine with especially gladiola, they would get bigger and more robust.
yeah. They do.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they bunch out, and then you can dig and divide them in like freesias as well. They do much better, and like daffodils do amazing. I mean, the thing that the season that I most miss home is February, late February, early March, because it's just that's when all the daffodils and all the bulbs are out in the UK, and that's when and then here he's still got snow on the ground, and it's
Yeah.
quite depressing. So it's like, yeah, that's the worst time, I think.
Are there any happy surprises in terms of differences here compared to the UK for you?
Yeah, there's some things like canna lilies, those kind of lilies and those kind of things. I wouldn't have been able to grow in the UK. It wouldn't have been hot enough to get them to do
Oh,
well. Like it's they do okay, but it just they do better here for sure.
mm,
Much better.
yeah. It's funny, the extremes, right?
Yeah.
Like we get the
Mm.
ridiculous cold for a really long time, and then we get the really, really hot compared to the
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
difference.
Um, but yeah, there are some things that definitely I've been able to grow here, and also obviously I've moved to a really big plot, so I've got like one of the reasons we bought this house was it already had a very small kind of garden. Someone had tried to make a garden, started to. I don't think they knew a lot about gardening, but they tried to make some garden beds, and that was one of the reasons we chose it. Um, so I'm on about 3 acres, so I've got like a really big. I call it my allotment patch. So we just fenced it, and I've got a greenhouse, a big 10 foot by 12 foot greenhouse and lots of room, lots and lots of room. So that's one of the reasons we moved here. Although it's quite overwhelming to keep it now. Fine.
But that's why you have all those kids, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, they don't
you
really
get the
help,
method.
but they ish. Yeah,
I love it. I
yeah,
love the fact that you have the greenhouse and you also have the pond as well as the space to be able to grow things. I think those two things are game changers for a lot of gardeners. Having a greenhouse just makes such a huge difference being able to start and keep things going. So starting earlier and keeping things going longer into the season, just that extra layer of protection for starts and longer term things. And also the pond. I mean, we talked about it already, but I feel like adding water to a garden is just it's one more element that might not be there for if you didn't have it intentionally put in or if it wasn't naturally occurring. And I think adding elements makes a lot of sense. And so the water element for me is a big one. But I love the fact that you've got that and the greenhouse. Like I keep telling people who come to see our yard or get plants from us. Um, that's like my happy place. Like honestly, I go into the greenhouse and it makes me so content being in there, especially because in the early spring it's so much warmer and I hate the cold. So the idea of having the warmth is
oh yeah, yeah, no, definitely. And it does. I mean, even though mine's not heated, I don't think yours is either. It does still definitely let you grow things a lot earlier. But it does. Again, there is that thing where it gets very, very, very hot in the summer, and things are like won't manage. So I plant lettuce. Sorry, I plant lettuce in there about March, and it's great, and it's all harvestable like in June or May even, but now it's just died because it's too hot in there for
yeah.
it. So there's yeah, and it's working out what you can use your greenhouse for.
Exactly. I
Yeah,
love being able to put plants in over winter, but even over winter, because it gets hotter during the day, but then cold at night still, I have to make sure that I put in snow on the plants that I have in there so that they get moisture, because if not, they would dry out and
yeah, yeah,
right? So it's that weird like figuring out the temperature and the zone
Yeah.
it
And
is.
in this year, the one thing that I've tried, or just some things that I've tried are like terracotta pots are amazing, but tried when it got cold a couple of nights is putting candles in the terracotta pots and putting one over the top. So putting
Oh,
it in a tray, and that really worked. That just kept the temperature up when it was going to be a frost. It was like May time, and I had some plants, or no, maybe early June, and it was going to be, and that did work. So I just went and put the candles in and the pots over. And then what I've done this year, which I've never done before, is made like, I think they're called bollers, they're like Greek things, they're terracotta in it, the water comes through, is buried those with all my tomato plants and
yeah.
buried them and put a lid on the top and filled those up. And it definitely, I mean, obviously I still need to water, but it's definitely works.
Amazing.
So bunged the hole up with cork, filled the pot up, put a lid over the pot to keep it from evaporating. And the things that are really thirsty, like your peppers and tomatoes and all that kind of thing, that's really, I've never done that before, but
Yeah.
it's really worked. So,
Yeah, I've
yeah.
heard people have had success with that, and it's really cool to hear that you've had it, especially so close to where I am, that it's worked. And I've never done the candle thing because it's only been, I guess this is only my second year with my greenhouse. But I've wondered if that is an effective way to keep it warm in those really cold nights. So that's cool to hear. Yeah.
It did, but I was a little bit paranoid about it going on fire, but it didn't.
I
But
I have that same paranoia.
yeah, but it was tea lights, big tea lights, and I was like, oh my gosh, but it was fine. So they just
Amazing.
burned out, which I thought, so because it was a tea light, it burned. They were big tea lights, they burned out. So
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Very cool. Well, love hearing all of this. It's really cool for you sharing your story and being able to do that comparative stuff. Because this is a podcast about shade gardening,
Hmm.
would love to hear maybe your top couple shade loving plants that you enjoy, either ones that you had in the UK that you loved, or ones from that do well here in Canada that you've enjoyed here as well. So, like, give us your top two from both locations if
So
you
when I
want.
bought the house, there must have been, the house is about 12, 15 years old. So someone must have started a flower bed a long time ago and
Mm,
it was good. It was all overgrown. It wasn't really there, but I could still see the stones. And in there was some Solomon seal, but it had actually grown into the woods. And
yeah,
Solomon seal doesn't really like to be moved, but it'd gone out of the bed. So that's one of the first things I did is move it back into the bed. And now it's doing great. So Solomon seal, and then I don't think that was originally a shade garden because originally I don't think there was all the trees, but there is now. So I've got a little plot with shade in there, and I put in Solomon seal. I've got some hostas, obviously. I've got some primulas, which you gave me actually,
yeah,
lily of the valley, and there's a naturally occurring like trilliums, which I've never seen. Obviously, they're a Canadian plant,
yeah.
so they grow there. They just grow there by themselves. And then I did have some coral bells, which I tried in the sunshine. That's their proper name. Is that their proper
Heuchera.
name? Coral bells. Coral bells.
Heuchera.
Ah, okay. So I tried them in the sun, but they hated it. So I've moved them there, and they're doing much better. And then lungwort I've got in there, and then sweet woodruff, which has gone mad and having to pull it out now. And then this year I went to our Fall River gardening show, and I've always tried to get one, but they've always been sold out. But I bought a May apple, which is doing great. Which is it has beautiful flowers underneath. And that's what I've got in there right now, and it's kind of pretty full up because it's not a huge space, but it's doing great. And I don't really give that any water. Oh, the only other thing that I've got in there is a bleeding heart.
Oh
I
yeah.
have in there, yeah, and it's
Um,
doing great.
I love the fact that you mentioned mayapple because it's such a cool plant. It's
Yeah,
so structural and large, and once you get them into the ground, they quite often and they're happy. They quite often spread and form a colony. So it's a really lovely plant if you want to fill in a spot with a quite a structural looking plant. And that flower is so big.
so pretty.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I find if you put mayapple with bloodroot, it's a good combination because the flowers are quite similar in that they're white and large and well, if you get the native species, the straight natives, the bloodroot has that simple flavor which matches or pairs really well with the mayapple. And I don't know if you know this, but mayapple is actually edible.
no, I didn't know that. So I've
So
actually never seen it before. It must be native. Is
it
it here?
is,
Native plant here? So
yeah,
no, I'd never even seen it. So I had to like Google what it was, how to look after it, and what to do.
yeah.
So no, I didn't know you could eat it. What, the leaves or the all of it?
So the flower will actually, if it gets pollinated, will produce the apple, the
Oh,
fruit,
okay.
But you can't eat it until it's actually fully ripe because if you eat it too soon, it is toxic. But usually people don't get to it soon enough. Squirrels will get it before they, or chipmunks will get it before people do. But it is edible, and you have to wait till it like really goes ripe. If not, it's apparently quite bad for
Okay.
you. But yeah, it's weird because a lot of folks don't know like it is a native species and it is edible and it's got like this cool structure in the garden that sort of adds yeah, something different than you would see. And those big leaves that it produces on two stems that come out. So yeah, just a really interesting plant. I find, and I love the fact that you also mentioned Solomon seal, Polygonatum, which is a favorite of mine as well. I got one and planted it. It had been like dug up from someone's garden, and it did take quite a while to.
Yeah, they don't like it at
It's,
all.
yeah, it's still trying to establish itself because they don't like to be transferred to new places, but it's doing okay.
I
But
still got loads growing in my woods, so it was like it spread out of where it obviously should have been, or somebody had planted it. I'd imagine somebody had planted it. But yeah, it's everywhere. But it's huge now.
yeah,
Lots of it. It really spread, so it's beautiful. But
and that's it. Like when it actually masses out, just like with the mayapple, when they actually form their colony and spread out, they're really beautiful looking. And there is like Polygonatum, Solomon seal is a native species as well. There are hybrids and there are other ones that aren't native species, but we do have native species here in Canada and across North America, actually.
I'd actually not seen. I know that people do have it in the UK, but I'd never seen it before.
Oh, nice.
So I hadn't seen it before. And if you drive into Halifax, got a sign of if you're driving into Halifax on I think it's Wise Road, there's loads of it in all the gardens there. I don't know if you've ever noticed it, but it's everywhere. It's spread on people's whole gardens are full of it.
Love it.
Yeah,
Love it. And you mentioned that we have traded plants.
yeah.
It's something that I've talked about on last year's season of this podcast. Is the idea of becoming a member of a garden club because you get to trade plants with other gardeners, right? Like you meet people, you get to trade seeds, you get to share plants, and then benefiting from plant sales and that sort of thing. I love the fact that you and I swap plants, and I feel like I'm indebted to you. I still have more things I need to give you. The foxglove, even though it's not a shade lover, the foxglove you gave me is doing really great. I've got it in actually one of my favorite spots of the garden now. It's just aesthetically working out really well. It's designed nicely, and I can't wait till next year when it actually shoots up the flowers. And a couple of the vegetables that you provided. So the eggplant is doing well, and the patio tomato.
Absolute tomatoes. Yeah, mine are doing great actually. Yeah,
They're
yeah,
loving the heat. They're loving the
yeah,
heat. Yeah,
yeah. I know. Yeah, yeah.
yeah. Amazing. Um, Thank you so very much, Shirley. I really have enjoyed having a chat with you today, and I'm sure that the listeners will enjoy this episode as well, hearing differences between gardening in different locations and also getting ideas for shade gardens with the ones that you've mentioned. Is there anything else you want to like share before we wrap up?
I was just going to say, the shade garden is the easiest ever because you don't need to do really anything to maintain it except for mulch it. I never water it, or I just put everything in and then leave it alone, and it's kind of does its own thing. So it's
Agreed.
definitely one of the easiest things to have.
Yeah, I love it. I love it for that reason as well. And I'm actually in the process of expanding one of my gardens underneath our maple tree, which of course is going to be super dry shade because the maple tree sucks up all the moisture
Yeah.
that falls. But I'm putting stuff in there that will like the dry. So I can't get enough shade gardens.
Okay, thanks. It's lovely to talk to you.
Thank you, Shirley. You're a superstar. Thanks so much. Thanks for listening. Thanks also goes to Sherry Donegan, Jonathan Scott, and of course Ian Jefferson for brainstorming podcast name ideas with me. Credit goes to Sherry on that one. If you have thoughts or ideas you'd like to share, please email me at plantitwherethesundon'tshine@gmail.com. That's one word without the apostrophe. You can also follow the show on Instagram at plantitwherethesundon'tshine with Dr. Dennis. Hosting is provided by Spotify for podcasters. Until next time, thanks for listening. Go plant it where the sun don't shine.